Okay everybody, welcome back. Today I'm going to be showing an overview of my sim and how it all works and what it all costs. So first up, to actually set up the sim, first things first, I got to verify that I've got good power. Come on over here and I'll switch on the power. I've got a single switch here. Verify that I've got good power. Then I can open up the door here and I come into the sim, and then in the glove box is actually where I have the second switch, and that'll power up my instruments and my screen. I also need to verify that right here I have a yellow light. That means that my main instruments are turned on. I also turn on a mouse I've got here. It's a wireless mouse and keyboard, and that's what I use to power, or rather control stuff in the sim. I turn on the main TV, and then while that turns on, come out here and I turn on the main speaker system and the subwoofer. Once all that's turned on, I can come over to my computer. This is what runs the entire sim. It's an Omen laptop. I bought it a couple months ago, and it's run FS2020 on Ultra very, very well. So, and then I've got all my cables here, which I just plug in. So I'll come back in just a second once it's all plugged in. Alright, I'm now back. I've got everything plugged in. So this will run my headset. Then I've got it's a USB-C to a double HDMI little splitter there, and that runs the TV and the Garmin. I've got two USB. One goes to a USB hub. The other is for my engine instruments. It's the Arduino. I've got one HDMI, and that's for my main instruments, and then also Ethernet. I only run that. I don't have it plugged in right now, just because then I have a wire that runs all the way across, and it's not great. So if I go in here into the sim, you can see main screen is on, Garmin is up, as well as the main instrument, and then I have everything else hooked up and running. So I can also go ahead and turn on the lights, and that'll allow me to see a little bit better. And then I can also go ahead and close the glove box. All of this is built from foam board, so this is just a couple of foam board circles that I hot glue together and put a piece of electrical tape on, and that just allows it to turn, so I can turn it and it'll lock. This is fake leather. I got it for like 20 bucks, enough to cover the entire sim from a local leather, or rather, fabric store. The Hobbs meter is a real Hobbs meter. This is just, again, foam board. I print out paper and cut it or cover it. A real switch, this is standard switch. Lights are just RGB lighting from my local hardware store. This is an amazing piece of work right here. Prop Wash Sims comm panel. Absolutely amazing. This is just a dummy, doesn't do anything, it's just a piece of foam board, and these are, I just cut these out and moved them out to make it look like real buttons. Simple switches, they're just interfacing to a model 2120 from Desktop Aviator. I bought, it's 20 switches off Amazon for like 10 bucks. And they have LED lights, so in this switch, or rather this circuit, I wired it up to turn on the annunciator, but then the switch is also wired to turn on. So, super simple. Got a comms panel. This is the only switch that has comms. It just turns it. I ran a code. I coded it in a software, and that'll just mute and unmute through Windows. So, and then of course, my Garmin is just foam board with a Raspberry Pi. It's like a 2.5 inch display, I think. It might be bigger, I'm not sure. Anyway, it's 27 bucks, and off Amazon. Works perfectly. Took a few minutes to get it set up, but other than that, it was great. Down here, rudder pedals are just standard Logitech pedals. Nothing crazy about them. Here's the wireless keyboard that goes with the mouse. And then here, I'm just using, I used to just have the actual Logitech ProFlight yoke installed here. I removed it because the circuit board actually died. So this is the old throttle from it. And I reached out to Logitech and they sent me a new one, which I'm just running over there. Just so I can run this throttle, because otherwise I can't run it to my computer, because I've not built my actual push and pull throttle yet. I don't have it mounted. Normally it's mounted with Velcro, because I'm working on actually building the real throttle, and I don't want to have Velcro marks on there. It's Logitech switch panel works very, very well straight out of the box. Even with FS2020, I don't have any issues. And then this is a push button, so it doesn't actually do any turning, but it's a push button, and I just have that set up to automatically set it to both. Not the most realistic, but it works really well. And then normally this is a push and pull, but I just made it a switch, and I had an extra cover, so I installed that as well. For up here, these guys are literally lip balm caps that I painted black and put a sticky bubble on, and that just goes on a push button, and it turns just like down with the fuel selector, and so you can turn it if you want, but it just pushes it and it automatically sets it. These are just 3D printed. I made them, or I partially made them myself. The basic thing I pulled from Thingiverse, and then I had to edit them to be able to get my switches to fit. And then for my Dextron clock, all I'm using here is an old watch. It's not the most amazing thing ever, but it works. And I'm trying to get it set up right now. There's a light behind here, and I'm trying to get that so when I push, it'll light up. This is my engine instruments. These two are not working. This one, the needle fell off, and I've not reinstalled it. And this one, I think the servo's burned out. So, standard Cessna fashion, you just put a out of order sticky note on it and call it good. So, the yokes are fully linked, and it's just PVC pipe that I then got cover for, and that just, well, covers it, makes it look really nice. And later on, I'll actually show you how the linkage works as well. And again, just push buttons, which are run through the PVC pipe into, this one doesn't actually go to the Model 2120, because the Model 2120 is a pulse only. So I have it hooked up to the same, I'm using a Arduino Leonardo, and that's what runs my, the entire yoke actually with the potentiometers, and then these guys are also wired into that same circuit board, so I can actually have it be a hold instead of a toggle, because for obvious reasons that wouldn't really work. And then this is just a super old screen. I got it for like 30 bucks at a local store, and got it all set up, and it works. Weird yellow line, sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. I think it's a screen issue, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't really notice it when I'm flying, so it doesn't bother me that much. Alright, and now for the actual structure of the sim. So the structure is foam board, just really cheap foam board I got from just a crafts store, and that's attached to just straight up PVC pipe, and that's all just, it's simple PVC pipe structure. I have 3D modeling for it, I might release plans, I'm not sure. And just the foam board just screws right on in. This is not a very good screwing job. It kind of popped out. That one's a little bit better. And then just the fake leather is then just glued onto that. And it looks very nice, and it also feels very realistic. It doesn't have any weird textures or anything. It's completely smooth. So this one has a bit of a papery texture. It's not fantastic, but it works very well for what I need it to. And when I'm flying, I'm not exactly testing the textures of my panels. So this does not actually do anything. It's my gust lock. It's literally removed a 4-flight pin I attached to a paper clip that I cut off, and it just goes in a hole. So it's good for practicing the procedure, and that's about it. RPM gauge is, again, just run by a servo. It's just another 3D printed setup. Same for these guys. These are, the pins are the needles are 3D printed, and then it just runs to a Arduino Mega, which is mounted directly behind here. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get a good view of that, but when I get into the electronics section, I'm going to be going over all of that. Alright, now to actually start up all the software to run the sim, I've created my own executable here. It's just called SimStart. I might release it. It's kind of specific towards my computer, but just running that, and it'll run all my software, and it'll also load up my instruments in there. I do have to actually click OK on that though. Now, if I go in here, you can see my instruments are now loaded up there, and my prop wash drivers are running there as well. So everything just connects very simply here. I use vPilot with VATSIM for ATC, Mobi Flight, which runs my engine instruments, so RPM gauge, left and right fuel tanks, oil temp and oil pressure, and eventually probably a whiskey compass. Those are all things that I'll start when I actually run the sim, and then I'll minimize that. Prop wash drivers here, I can just minimize that. Flight events, this is what I use to connect to a tablet, and then I can track my flight, just like you would with, it connects to Flight Plan Go, and it'll work. I mean, it shows me my flight path, I can do flight planning, gives me different airspaces. Everything I would need there, so very good. And I can just start the flight tracking and minimize that. I don't even need to be connected to the sim to get that to work. And then I have FS2020 and then my custom, this is my custom headset muting application, if you will, and just whenever I flip that one switch, it'll just mute and unmute in Windows, and that's how I can turn on and off my comms. Not the greatest solution, but it works pretty well. So, alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and start FS2020. So if we come on over here, I'm running Premium Deluxe of FS2020. I should just click it. It should open on the main screen. If it doesn't, I know exactly why. I was playing around with it earlier today, and that sometimes messes it up. But hopefully it'll open on the main screen. If not, I run in full screen mode, so if not, I just press Alt-Enter, and I can just drag it over and then press Alt-Enter again. And that initial startup is not fantastic. However, once I'm actually loading up in the game, it's very much better. So it did not open up on that screen, which is unfortunate, but very, very simple to fix. So Alt-Enter there. And I can go ahead and drag it over here and press Alt-Enter again. And now it'll boot up on this screen. It's a pretty cool intro when you're in the sim because it's got the subwoofers and everything. So it's got a really cool surround sound. And then going on, so my instruments I have configured so when I sit here they look correct. Obviously when I get off to the side they don't look correct because I actually have to have about an 1.5 inch gap because of my annunciator panel switch, which just has batteries and the actual switch itself. So it's the actual instrument software is completely free. It's from the Gauges factory for FSX, but I was able to get it working within FS2020. So one main thing I wanted to do with the sim is make it as cheap as possible. So overall, not including like the TV or chairs and some things like that, I spent about $400 on it. That's for the panel, the leather, the PVC pipe, the foam board, the screens in the cockpit. This is a Raspberry Pi display and the actual instrument display. All of that was about $400 to $500-ish. Now, all in, the TV, brand new, a TV like that would maybe be around $1,000 or so. Now it's a very old TV, so it's much less than that. But overall, it's a very cheap sim, and it's the exact dimensions of a real Cessna. So it's 39.5 inches wide, and I think it's 42 inches tall, or something near that. But it's a very cool structure here, and it's a very good training tool. So, alright, so welcome back to the view that I'm sure all of you are very familiar with. So we're going to go ahead and start up the sim. I'm running on not straight up ultra settings, they're a little bit edited, but for the most part it's on ultra, and I get very good frame rates. So it's rendering in just 1080p. It's I use VSync. I limit it to 30 FPS just because when it actually runs with flight simulation, you don't need necessarily 60 FPS. You want just buttery smooth. You don't want to have any stutters, and that gets me fabulous setup. So I'm just gonna probably, you're not gonna be able to see all of them, but for the most part, it's locked on ultra. we're going to go ahead and start our flight today. So for this example, I think we're going to do, we'll leave off where I finished the last flight. So KSNL. And if we zoom to details here, we'll specify, actually we'll just do it through here. We'll just go with ramp 3. And we're going to be flying to KSRE. So KSRE. And there we go. So I'm not going to use live weather because the US had a lot of cold and snow, so we'll just run on, we'll do scattered clouds. Make sure I load that up correctly. It's hard to see the actual fly now button, but there it is. So now you can see the loading time. So this is on Ultra. I've flown at this airport once, so I do technically have the pre-cache, if you will, but it loads up very quickly. So, and while this is loading, or rather, when it finishes loading and goes into the little sequence there, I keep that on because that's when I'll go and turn on MobiFlight and VATSIM. So, and then I'm also running, I use these custom printouts for my ATC. I've designed this myself, and it works very well. So it's covers everything. I might put a link to where you can download this and use it yourself. There's a couple real-world pilots who are actually using this design that I've created. The specific Ace Airlines one, not just some rip-off or something like that. So and there we go. That is how fast it loads with this setup. And we're going through a cloud. So now, while this setup is running, I'm going to go start MobiFlight. I'll be back in 1 second. And MobiFlight's now started. You might have seen the instruments move or fluctuate a small bit. And if I just press enter now, we'll hop on into the cockpit. I do have to do one other thing. I used to be using the VFR map. Now, actually, I don't know why I put that away. Now I'm using the actual Garmin itself. So if I hold down right Alt and click it, it'll actually open up. Now it's opened up on the other screen, so I'll be back again with that. Alrighty, so now it's on my Raspberry Pi display here, and if I just do Alt-Enter, that'll enter full screen mode. I can bring my mouse back onto this screen, and now the sim is completely ready to go. Let me reset the view here. And hide the mouse, and then my mouse I just put in my little glove box, and it works really well. So that is all I do, and now we're loaded up. So I'll be back in just a minute, and we'll actually do a flight. Alright everybody, so we're going to go ahead and depart now. So close my door. The window also opens and closes, and we're going to get going. So first things first, remove the forward flight pin, take that off, and that pops in my glove box. I'll go ahead and close my glove box. And then, I guess, I'm not really going to follow the checklist right now. Normally I would, but I just want to do a demonstration, so I'm not going to go super realistic. So, turn on our master switch, our beacon, fuel sectors on both, open our mixture, give us fuel pump, prime our engine there, set the parking brake, go ahead and crank. That was a good start. Turn on the avionics and Hobbs meter. Yeah, like again, the ELT is what I use to turn on the Hobbs meter because it's not linked directly to the sim. You can see Garmin boots up correctly, and you can pull our mixture back now for taxi. I'd normally be making announcements. I'm not on VATSIM currently because I'm trying to make this an instructional kind of what my sim is about video. Not a strict flying video. I'm probably just going to fly the pattern so I can demonstrate the entire sim. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the taxi light here, and I'm going to go ahead and taxi. Let's see where. Actually, if I remember correctly, there's fuel pumps right over here. I think. Yes, okay, so... yeah, so we need to go that way then. Here's the taxiway. Okay, awesome. We'll set my flaps to 10 degrees. Again, I'm also working when I build my throttle. I'm going to make a flap lever as well. Just not got to that yet. And I have a lower frame rate than usual right now, just because my computer was sitting. I had to go offload the footage, and my sim, or my computer rather, it's a little bit warmish after that, so it's a little bit slow in the frame rate, but all completely manageable. Normally it's about twice, maybe I'd say about twice as good, or as smooth, I guess, as this is currently. Check my annunciator. This is just the LEDs. I pulled a strip of LEDs and pulled the lights out. It's just wired up to a simple battery and then the switch. I'm using colored tissue paper to change the lights. So the lights behind here are just white, and then the tissue paper is actually what colors it. So that's a super simple way to color lights without actually having to do all the soldering for every pin. I can just solder all of them together to make it just straight up white and then change the color that way. Normally I'd do my run-up, but again I'm just doing this as a demonstration, and I don't have any failures set on, so if we have an engine failure I will be very much surprised. So I'm going to go ahead and turn onto the runway. I'm going to turn on my strobe and landing lights. Check my flaps are set, mixture's going full rich, set my altimeter and my heading. I would check final is clear, and then my other view I'd check anyone's departing. Now my view is assigned to look more at the ground for when I'm flying, so that's not exactly going to work. Line up here, and we're good to go, so I'm going to go full power. And we're going to go ahead and just fly a real quick pattern so I can demonstrate how everything works. All my instruments are working correctly. You can see our airspeed's increasing. There's a crosswind, that's what's causing me to turn. FS2020 is not the most realistic for crosswind. And there's 60, so I'll go ahead and rotate. That was actually a very strong crosswind, wow. So you can see I'm kind of having to crab just to keep on the center line. And the dual yokes, they are working very, very well. I'm going to continue my climb out. I'm going to put my flaps up. Normally if I'm just doing a pattern I wouldn't, but I want to demonstrate kind of the full range capabilities of the sim. About the end of the runway, so I'm just going to make right-hand pattern, or right-hand traffic rather. So I'm going to keep climbing. Actually climbing a little bit fast right now. I want 70 to 80. I'm going about 85 or so. So I can pitch up and continue that climb. And there's 80 and there's 75. So right where I want to be. Continue the turn. I'd try and square off my turns, but I'm just going to make this super quick. So I'm just going to do a tighter turn here. And you can see a little bit of the scenery just looks fantastic. FS2020 is really a huge improvement. I used to be running FSX, and the difference is enormous. Alright, there's downwind, so I'll level off here and pull my power back. I would then turn on my autopilot to trim, because I don't actually have my trim wheel set up yet. When I build the throttle, I'm going to have an extra potentiometer, and I'm going to use that for my trim wheel. But I don't have that set up yet. I'm not going to trim just because I'm doing a pattern, so there's not really much necessity for it. It's really bumpy up here. It's interesting. Well, I guess it's not interesting. It's pretty... I set it to scattered clouds, which does add a lot of wind, so... I mean, I'm not even moving the yokes, and we're bouncing around, so... I do have my... To get this to feel really realistic, I had to consider, do I want it to be realistic on the ground or in the air? And I'm like, I'm going to be... The purpose of building flight sim is to fly, so I wanted to get all my forces acting on the yoke, just like it would be in the air. So it's not force feedback, but I have the pressure done through rubber bands and all that set up so it would feel, I mean, it's pretty darn difficult to pull on the yoke, and that's to get it to feel like I would have forces in flight. The roll, I didn't really do much on that, just because it's not the sturdiest for the roll. The pitch is, I can do whatever I need on that, but for the actual roll, I wanted to go a little bit easier on the tension, just because otherwise, you know, the other yoke would have to be dealing with those extra tensions, and that was just engineering I didn't really want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and turn base here, and yep, we're right over this road here, and then I can level off and check for the runway. It was right there, so I'll start my turn to final. Drop one more notch of flaps. I'm probably going to do a full flap landing. Actually, I'm not going to do a full flap landing because it's pretty darn windy. So one thing you want to do with that is you want to minimize the surface area of the wing. So I'm just going to do 20 degrees. I overshot a bit there, but that's fine. I'm just going to correct. And I'm right where I want to be for speed, about 65 or so. And my lights are all set. And I'm going to re-intercept the wide slope here. And continue. I have to crab again just for the wind, which is fine, no big deal there. And I mean, you can see just on the approach, when you're sitting normally, the screen, it covers the entire view, so there's almost zero outside, like I can't see the walls of the room or anything. I can see a tiny bit of my box for the rudder pedals over there, but otherwise it's completely dominated by the TV, so, and it looks just phenomenal. So I'm going to idle my throttle. I'm going to come in a little bit lower just because I want to see if I can make this first taxiway, and just start my flare. I ballooned a little bit. A lot of it actually. Really flare there, and there we go. And again, that's one thing with FS2020 is that rudders are very sensitive. I have it at -50 sensitivity, and it's still enormous. And I have my forces on the rudder pedals set to the absolute max. That's one thing that's amazing about Logitech is you can actually adjust the tension on the rudder, so pretty cool. And I have it maxed out. I mean, still, it's very aggressive. So I'm going to put up my flaps, turn off my landing light and strobe, and turn on the taxi light. I'm going to taxi right back to the fuel pumps where we departed. Of course, with the prop wash, I can change the frequencies and everything. That all works completely. I'm not using any ATC right now just because I want to demonstrate the sim. And whenever I do one of my normal flying videos, that's when I'll be doing ATC. And I do formation flying. That's why you have me, or why you hear me having what seems to be completely unnecessary conversations, but it's because I'm flying formation with one of my friends. He also runs a channel, Flight Dude. I've put a card up for him a few times, and that was one thing about that is we always want to make sure that we know where we are, so we don't crash. Go taxi. I don't want to get too close to the fuel pumps because then it'll open up the actual fuel thing. I can turn that off, but I've just not done that. Right here should be good. If I can get roughly where their parking spot is. I'll do it right about here. I was hoping to have someone marshal me in, but it looks like no one's over here. I think they're probably over there. So set our RPM to 1,000. You can turn off the taxi light, and we'll go ahead and shut down. So what I would normally do is I could just pull my power. Now when I do that, it's going to go to the little end screen, which is fine. It'll be a good conclusion. So I guess I'll go ahead and do that right now. Oh, awesome. Okay, so it's not going to do that, so I can actually do a normal shutdown. Not having the center pedestal anchored is not the most realistic, but can't do anything else about that. There we go. Turn off the Hobbs meter, go to the end screen, everything else is shut down. So that'll be a conclusion to this video. Please post any questions you have I'm going to try and answer them all, and I'll create a separate video that'll be more specific towards that, because I don't know entirely, what everybody wants to know regarding the sim. I tried to show as much as I could today, but if you have any other unanswered questions, post them in the comments section, and I will read them, and either if it's a simple question, reply then, or I'll make an entire video on that. So, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time.